Oh, well, hello. My name is Professor Average Joe, and I'm here to school you a little bit about the circular economy. But first, we have to look at the kind of model that we are in right now. So, the linear model is take, make, and waste. There's no additional step after waste because everything ends in a landfill. We take things from our earth, we make something valuable and precious to us, and once we're done with it, we throw it away and we forget about it forever. However, when we think about changing that model, bringing it to a more circular kind of form, we can now connect these two dots between the ending and the beginning. So take an aluminum can, for example. We're not going to just take some aluminum, make a can, and then throw it away. We want to make another can out of it. So we're going to take our aluminum from the earth, we're going to make a nice sparkly little aluminum can, and then we got to fill it with some goodies, right? Maybe some yoo-hoo, some soda, and then we're going to drink that soda. Oh, it's going to be delicious. And so, when we take that, now we're going to bring that can back to a return center. And that return center is going to take all the cans from all the delicious sodas, and they're going to bring it together, give it a nice good scrub, nice good wash, crunch them down, and then melt it into another can. And that can will then go back on the shelf, filled with delicious soda. More delicious soda, same can.
Like, how important is waste diversion?
How important is waste diversion? Well, you know, what else are we going to do with it? Burn it? You know, are we going to burn it and increase carbon emissions? Are we going to keep piling it in waste pits until we end up living like Wall-E? Like, we can't do that, you know, like, we actually can't, like, it doesn't work within our planetary limits. And so I think that every piece of waste, every piece of that puzzle, from the carbon emissions that we create, from the plastic that we produce, from the food that we don't eat, like all of these different pieces need to be tackled in different ways. And that's what's so interesting about waste to me, is all the different ways you can go about solving it, and all the different pathways that you need to go about solving it, all those different little puzzles. But when we look at a framework like the circular economy, when we think about waste as a resource, when we think about how can this be injected back into our economy so we're not losing that resource, you know, and creating more waste and creating more emissions, I think like that's what's important. And I don't know, why is waste important? Because it's resource. Like, we're not just throwing away our phones. All of those materials are just gone if we just throw it away, but they could be recovered and they can be reused, and that is why it's important.
We are seeing the effects that just piling things up in a landfill has, the effects that it has on people and communities, the effects that it has on the environment, and the effect it has on ecosystems as well, even through bioaccumulation, which is what we're seeing with microplastics. If something doesn't biodegrade, we think that, like, oh, it'll just sit there forever. But that's not necessarily true, because it'll just keep getting smaller and smaller and then accumulate along the food chain and then eventually come back to us. And so this is where we really try to take a page out of nature's book and really try and imagine what a truly circular system might look like, where every waste product is a resource for another product. We really can't think about circular systems and imagine circular systems without knowing where we are now, which is very much a linear economy. We take resources out of the earth, we make something worth something, and then we throw it away, we waste. It has a finite kind of cycle. It goes from cradle to grave, and then we think that it just ends there. However, a circular system more so encompasses the in-between between that grave and cradle on the other side. Looking at things from birth to birth, connect those two pieces together. And from a technological standpoint, like when we think about computer chips, for example, like this is where we need to be innovative. We have these finite and kind of raw materials like metals that we craft into these delicate computer chips. Once those computers come to the end of their life, then we need to be more forward and upfront and capture that waste and be able to either reuse or send back to the manufacturer so that that chip can be made into a newer chip, or it can be used for a different product. And being able to think about this creatively can really open up a lot of doors and create a lot of opportunities along every step of the way. And so this is where I see the Diverters Foundation taking charge and trying to conceptualize and contextualize the circular economy from a Victoria context and the grassroots element.
So the circular economy is a way of rethinking our traditional linear economy, which is take, make, waste. So you take a resource, you make something out of it, and then often that item is discarded. So an example of that would be, let's say, a plastic fork. You extract oil to make that item, and then you use that plastic fork for maybe like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then you throw that item away. That's a very linear economy. The circular economy with that same fork would be, how do we keep that fork within our economy and not just continue to make more and then waste it? So a reusable fork, your metal fork, or something that you bring in a little reusable pouch with you if you go to a festival, or even just dining in at a restaurant. We often think of the circular economy as like this super innovative thing that we need to strive towards. And there is a lot of opportunity for innovation, but I think some of it is just looking back on how we used to do things when there was less waste.
I grew up in a time where we didn't have all these recyclables, and we used our own water bottles and things like that. I never experienced earlier in my life so many recyclables and garbage, you know, that it's created. I'm thinking in the bigger picture, I think recycling is perfect way to deal with the waste of these recyclable bottles and Tetra Paks. But I think also some education maybe for people to reuse their mugs, to carry a water bottle, teaching people's habits on how to live their lives more sustainably by using their own water bottles and buying things with less packaging as well.
There's a lot of differences between sustainability and circular economy. However, they need to go hand in hand if we're going to transition to a more equitable society, to a more environmentally friendly way of living, and to a more efficient way of using our finite resources. When it comes to profitability, circular systems have the potential to be quite profitable. So one example that I can think of is copper. The energy it takes to recycle copper, it's significantly less energy to recycle copper than it is to mine copper. And so when we can look at the kind of energy and the resources and materials needed to mine or get new materials for new products, then we start to really get into the brass tacks of the profitability of circular systems, because not only are we working with finite pools of resources, but we're also curbing our energy use because we don't need to bring things from other systems in order to make our system work. So having a closed loop system is inherently sustainable, it's inherently self-sufficient, and from like a profitability standpoint, there are so many third-party opportunities off of a circular economy that really expand the potential and expand business models and expand the kind of labor force that might be able to benefit off of a singular circular system. The expensive piece comes from the transition. This is where we need to kind of look at it from a broader societal perspective and bring in those calls for a transition to a more sustainable or circular system that will be profitable or that is profitable once it's in, because waste is nothing but a resource to the right eyes.
Globally, between 100 and 150 billion dollars per year are lost in resources just by being single-use and not being collected and recycled. The coffee cup revolution is basically an event created by the Binners Project in Vancouver and also implemented here by the Diverters Foundation in Victoria. It is an event to draw the attention of a single-use item which is discarded, has no refund system, and is a nuisance in the landfill, filling up the landfills. It's people contributing with their coffee cups, and in the preparation of the coffee cup revolution, also diverters and binners would be going out collecting cups out of the waste stream. And then at the day of the coffee cup revolution, they would receive a refund for the coffee cup. So making it worthwhile for them to collect the cups. But the key idea of it is actually really drawing the attention, showing the amount of cups which go wasted every day and which could be collected for a deposit, stimulating people to use their own container.
So we just celebrated the 10th anniversary of the Coffee Cup Revolution. Our first year, we collected, I think it was around 40,000 cups. And then obviously this year, we are celebrating the most we've ever collected, having collected 145,000 cups over 3 hours. So the Coffee Cup Revolution happens every year, typically in October. And it happens in Victory Square Park, which is a city park. So the event is almost entirely supported by sponsorships of local business improvement associations, businesses, and even the City of Vancouver and other kind of foundations that give us that money to be able to then disperse that to the community. The event itself is kind of split into two sections. We have the depot, which is where that active work of collecting and then dispersing income for cups happens, and that's led entirely by a team of binners that coordinate that and engage with the community through that process. And then we also do some kind of community engagement activity as well at the event and the other kind of side of the park, which takes a variety of different options. Round tables, we've had just more one-to-one conversations. This year, it being the 10th anniversary, we did a big focus on art and had some artists coming in to do some art pieces using coffee cups as a part of their art, which was a bit of a throwback to our first Coffee Cup Revolution, where we had a large coffee cup statue or structure that was made, and so it was nice to kind of be able to bring that back for this year. The intention behind the Coffee Cup Revolution was to and is to provide government or those people involved with an idea of how a refund system for coffee cups could work, that there's readiness and willingness from binners and people in the community to support something like that, and mirrors what our founder, Ken Leotier, had done in the 90s around the bottle bill, which was when the cans and bottles that weren't beer were included in the refund system. And he had done similarly a pop-up depot for those things that at that time were not eligible for refund. So that's where we've kind of gotten the idea for this thing, and we've seen that conversation continue over the years around cups, and continue to push for that being something that could be a valuable thing to support binners as far as their income goes, but also a way to divert a lot of waste out of landfill.
So my name's Sam. I'm an undergraduate student here at UVic. I'm studying geography and political science, and last year I completed my honors thesis under the supervision of UTA. It's called Circular Economy Transitions, Informal Recycling and the Deposit Refund System in BC. A key part of the research that I was uncovering was about the coffee cup revolution. Yeah, I was just sort of interested in that and what it would look like if we took this one-day event that, you know, the binners have been doing and now the diverters have done a couple times. What if we made this sort of like an actual permanent thing instead of just one day in the year? When you look at like how many cups they're bringing back in one day alone, like it's pretty crazy, it's pretty nuts. And then also not just the numbers of the cups, but then what that means like in income for, you know, the waste pickers, diverters, like they're only what, like 10 cents each that they're getting back, but when you put it all together, it's quite significant. So it's just a one-day sort of pop-up event, but I think a lot of the strength in it is it sort of like models or pilots what it would look like every day. It has like the environmental benefit. You can see in the photos like just how many coffee cups are collected that would have gone to the landfill otherwise. And then the economic benefit, the binners can take home, you know, income that they've collected from the coffee cups. They can take that money home with them at the end of the day, and then socially what that does too. That's income for them to spend on rent, on food, on whatever they need to survive. Or like just imagine if you could scale that up and make that a permanent thing. So yeah, just looking at the feasibility of what that would look like to actually include this material into the deposit refund system we have already in BC for other things like pop cans and juice containers, that sort of thing. Taking this material that, you know, is often just thrown in the garbage and putting a value on it and yeah, including it into this system that we have already. Just like 1 or 2 years ago, you know, the province included milk containers into the refund system. So, you know, it has been expanded before, it's happening. The way I envision it would just be a very similar process of, you know, just doing what's already being done for other containers and other items and doing the same thing for coffee cups as well. It is tough to separate the materials. You have your cup and your sleeve and your lid, and so the lid is plastic, the sleeve is usually some sort of paper or fiber, and then the cup itself often is paper, fiber, and then some sort of plastic coating on the inside. Separating all those materials is one thing, and then especially the cup itself with those two materials together. There are ways to separate the two, and then you have two materials that are both more valuable like on their own, or just breaking down the cup itself into one material that's sort of mixed and maybe is worth less. And so finding end markets for these sorts of things can be tough. That's definitely a barrier to including coffee cups in the deposit refund system. In like Vancouver, they have really well-established sponsors that may, you know, give money year after year for this event. In Victoria, like I think it's been harder to find sponsors, and this is sort of a key issue that came out of my research too, is there's just not a lot of support or will to support this sort of thing, or maybe just a lack of education. Like people just don't even know what it is, or you know, like why they should support something like that. Waste issues can just be sort of like normalized in a way or it's just something that you see every day, and you maybe don't stop to think about every little thing that you're putting in the garbage or every little thing you're consuming and goes into your everyday life. It's just kind of invisible in a lot of ways. Like it was right there under your nose, but you maybe aren't consciously thinking about it. That can be tough. I think also sometimes just the mental burden of things can make it tough to act. Like it can be really disheartening to learn about, like everything going on in the world, and it can be overwhelming. And in the global north, coffee cups are, an item that most of us use, every day. It's a big problem, the waste generated from that. The main benefit with including coffee cups into like the deposit refund system in particular is that economic benefit to the diverters. Like it incentivizes them and just everyday people to, bring it back. They're, the collection rate will be greater. I think that's really key. And then it ties into like the holistic sort of element. It's about the environment, it's about the waste, it's about these sorts of things, but also it's about the people that are, this is their livelihood, this is their job, and so having, that sort of economic return is also really key, I think. Waste is such a huge issue, and I think this is such a great solution that is really holistic. Like it really encompasses facets of all of it, and so yeah, it's a great solution that it's not just tackling one thing on its own in a corner. It's everything all at once.
What are your perceptions of the refund system? How does it function now, and how could it be expanded?
Expansion standpoint, there's so many products that certainly could be part of the refund system. So right now we accept milk products as part of the deposit system. You currently get 10 cents for that, as you do with all products here in BC. But creamers, soup containers, all that product that's essentially the same product as the milk product, okay, is not accepted. Right? So there's all that product that could be brought out of the waste stream and recycled. That's an opportunity. And then I think with recovery rates, recovery rates are about 76% right now for all the refundables that are collected. So right now, about 24% of all the product that is purchased, okay, and has a deposit on it, still ends up back in the landfill. Right? So that in British Columbia, that equates to about 1 million units a day. Okay? It's a huge number when it's said and done. And if you break it down to the CRD, that's about 80,000 units a day in the CRD. So 80,000 units that are ending up in our landfill that could be brought into the depots, and that's $8,000 in potential deposits that could be left in the community and returned to those who need it, whether it's you and I who have something, or the diverters. And the best way to raise that recovery rate, to recover more product, keep it out of the landfills, is just to raise the deposit. If you raise the deposit to 25 cents, you'd see a huge jump in the recovery rate of the product. The system here is very simple. Okay, it's 10 cents across the board. Yeah, would we like to see that higher? Absolutely would. Okay, I'm sure the diverters would as well. Okay, you'd see certainly more income there, and I think it would be a win-win for everybody. The challenge or the pushback would be that people are paying 25 cents more to get their product. Okay, and that would be a barrier. But I think if you and I have the choice to get that refund back, all we have to do is bring it to depot before we get the refund back. Okay, and if we decide we don't want that refund, and we can either donate it or we can put it in one of our charity bins out there and give that 25 cents to somebody else, it's a win. Somebody else to get it. I'd love to see that deposit rate go up. I think that would be the biggest win in ensuring that we're getting all the product. I think if you put more value on it, they'll be coming out of the depot when it's all said and done, and you'll see less of that ending up the waste stream. I think it's been proven in Europe. They have deposits up to 40 cents in Europe. I think if it happened here in British Columbia, you'd see impact right away.
The way I see it is that refundable systems inherently will be more attractive than recycling systems, because incentive and value is imbued in almost every step of the way. Whereas recycling infrastructure and systems, they don't have that same kind of incentive to recycle every step of the way. Like, it's only when it's profitable, that's when recycling will be 80, 90, 95%. But if you don't need to, then you're gonna see something like 60, 70, maybe even lower. and it's only the passionate people that will do it, because quite simply people don't need to.
There's always this balance. If you make something worth too much, then people are more motivated to collect it and take it in themselves. And if it's too little, then there's very little incentive for binners to do anything with it. And much of it comes down to weight and the capacity to take it in. Glass is extremely heavy. More than anything, I do believe that increasing the rate by far and large is in the interests of binners. It is a matter of just monitoring it to make sure that it's on the right goods and that it doesn't go so far that people make different choices.
As far as the refund system goes, we are advocating for and in favor of anything that can be added to that system that, again, increases income for binners, the people that we support, and also reduces the amount of waste that is going into landfill. So coffee cups is one for sure we think there's potential for, and there's potentially other things down the road too that could be a part of that system. We were strong advocates of milk and milk products being included for the fact that binners regularly were seeing it as something that was being put into the waste stream, and also is lightweight and things that are very easy for binners to be collecting alongside of those cans and bottles.
People often think of waste as plastic or like what's in your garbage bag at home. And I think that waste goes well beyond that. Like, there's food waste that we don't see. There is wood waste from construction and demolition. 60% of our landfill is that type of waste, organic waste. So I think thinking about waste not only as plastic, but also paper and the things that we kind of replace plastic with, that can also be waste.
I think it would totally be beneficial to expand the refund system. I think there are a lot of containers and materials and single-use items out there that if we could simply connect the manufacturers with recyclers, then you can have a lot of potential for more refunds to be available for like every kind of material. Like Coffee Cup Revolution, for example, like coffee cups is a really novel way to rethink what the refund system can do, because like this is a single-use thing that you don't really reuse coffee cups, right? That kind of reuse element of it, once that is kind of taken away, then the refund system, I think, really can step in and really close that loop.
I think there's lots of R's within the circular economy, so reduce, reuse, recycle, but there's so many other R's within that. There's repair, there's refurbish, there's refill. For our team at the city, we are always thinking about the very top of that hierarchy, which is reuse and reduction, because that often makes the greatest impact. Like, you're not even extracting a resource or developing that waste in the first place. Recycling and refurbishing or something like that, it still takes energy, and we're still moving items to be able to be recycled. So if you're preventing and going up the hierarchy to reduction and reuse, I think that's where we see the greatest impact.
I think the refund system is a great example of a circular system. You have a very kind of cradle to cradle kind of element to it. There's a lot of benefit that comes out of refundable systems, because not only does it provide an incentive for materials to be recycled, it provides additional income for people who might otherwise not get it, and it provides some certainty that new products are going to be made from that material. Because oftentimes what happens is in recycling, the material that comes out needs to be sold again. And if it's not sold, then it sits somewhere. It degrades by itself, or we turn and we look to international clients. And so I think refundable systems and the refund system has an energy to it that keeps it going, whereas a lot of other systems might lack that kind of energy. Yeah.
you also have to recognize that while, you know, you're providing an environmental service, and I think that that's really like the important thing that we need to focus on in terms of understanding what the diverters do and who they are, we also have to recognize that this is also a livelihood strategy, you know? Like, this is how they, you know, put food on the table, this is how they pay rent, this is how they get through a day and get the things that they need. It's a job. Like anything, you need some sort of job security, you know, and to be recognized for the work you do. And when you think, you know, only about technological innovation, like when we only focus on that part, it's like, but how do we get that phone, you know? And that's that human piece, you know? It's how it actually gets put back in to the circular economy, because without that, it's not gonna happen.